Alright guys, grab a drink and get comfortable. You are not gonna believe this. You all know Sarah, right? My fiancée. The woman I was supposed to marry in 3 months. The one who picked out the silverware pattern and could talk for an hour about the difference between ivory and eggshell for the wedding invitations. Yeah, that's Sarah. Well, let me set the scene for you. It was a Tuesday. I'd just come home from the firm. It had been a monster day. We're talking about a client from hell who wanted a neoclassical facade on a building that was, structurally, a glass box. My brain was fried. I walked into our apartment, our supposed future home, and it was quiet, eerily quiet. Sarah had texted me earlier saying she was working late at the gallery. I dropped my keys in the bowl, shrugged off my jacket, and headed for the kitchen, dreaming of a cold beer. And that's when I saw it. Her tablet, just sitting there on the quartz countertop, charging. The screen was dark, but then it lit up, a notification. From her best friend, Chloe. Now I'm not a snoop. You know me. I value privacy. But the preview of the message, it made my blood run cold. It just said, "Did he agree to talk about the loans yet?" My heart did this weird stutter step. Loans, the word just hung in the air. Sarah had about $150,000 in student loan debt from her art history degree. It was a source of stress for her, and we talked about it in vague. We'll tackle it together someday terms. But this sounded different. This sounded like an agenda. I stood there, staring at the dark screen, my professional instincts screaming at me. An architect is trained to see the underlying structure of things, the load-bearing walls, the potential points of failure. And this felt like a massive hidden crack in the foundation of my life. I reached out, my finger hovering over the screen. This was a line. A big one, but some deep primal instinct made me swipe it open. It wasn't locked, and guys, I wish I could describe the feeling. It was like the floor just disappeared beneath me. The message thread with Chloe was right there. I didn't even have to scroll. Chloe. So did you finally talk to Ethan about the loans? Sarah, not yet. He is avoiding it. A pause. Then the next message from Sarah. The one that will be burned into my brain forever. Sarah. But don't worry. I'll get him to agree before the wedding. Once he pays them off, I am gone. I read it. Then I read it again. And a third time. The words didn't make sense. Once he pays them off, I am gone. It was so cold, so transactional, so final. This wasn't my passionate, sometimes dramatic Sarah talking about a fight. This was a statement of fact, a plan. The rage hit me first. A white-hot, blinding wave of it. I actually saw stars. I wanted to pick up that damn tablet and smash it against the wall. I wanted to scream. I could hear her voice in my head, laughing at some dumb television show we'd watched just last night. The betrayal was so absolute, it was physical. But then, something else took over. This weird, icy calm. It was the same focus I get when I'm looking at a complex blueprint, and I spot the one miscalculation that could bring the whole thing down. Screaming was for when you were trying to save something. This thing, our relationship, our engagement, our future was already a corpse. It was just waiting for a burial. So, I became an investigator. I took out my phone and I took a picture of the screen. I emailed it to my secure work account. And then, with a steady hand that surprised me, I started scrolling up. It was all there, guys. A months-long, meticulously orchestrated plot. And the mastermind, her mother, Rebecca. The texts went back nearly half a year. It was like reading the script for a heist movie where I was the mark. Rebecca was the director, and Sarah was her star pupil. Rebecca, don't be aggressive about the loans, sweetheart. Men hate feeling pressured, frame it as being about our future. Tell him you can't fully commit emotionally until you are both debt-free, that you feel like you are holding him back. Cry if you have to. He is a protector. He'll want to fix it. Sarah, he is so focused on the wedding planning right now, it is the perfect distraction. He just wants me to be happy. Rebecca, good, use that. His desire for your happiness is your leverage. Sarah, I almost feel bad sometimes. He is a good guy. Rebecca, don't you dare feel bad. Feel smart, this is for your future, not his. A strong woman secures her foundation. I felt sick. But the real kicker, the moment that stole the air from my lungs, was about the aftermath. Sarah, but what do I do after? It'll be so obvious if I leave right after the wedding. Rebecca, you stay for a year, maybe a little more. You play the part, be the happy wife then. You start to seem distant. You tell him you've grown apart, that you are not happy anymore. You make it about feelings, not money. By then, the money is gone. The loans are paid. You walk away free and clear. It is a perfect plan. A perfect plan. For 2 years, I thought we were building a life together. I was choosing paint samples and planning our retirement. She was calculating an exit strategy. She wasn't my partner. She was a contractor hired to demolish me, with a completion bonus of $150,000. I closed the app. I placed the tablet back exactly where it was. My hand was perfectly steady. The initial rage had been replaced by a cold, hard certainty. I walked to the fridge, got a beer, and twisted the cap off. The hiss was the only sound in the apartment. Then I heard the jingle of keys at the door. My heart didn't flutter. It just beat, steady and cold. The door opened. "Ethan. Honey, I am home," she called out. Her voice bright and fake. She walked into the kitchen, all smiles, dropping her purse on the counter. She saw me, saw the beer in my hand, saw the expression on my face that I wasn't even trying to hide. "You okay, babe?" she asked, her smile faltering just a fraction. "You look tense." I took a long, slow sip of my beer, looking at her over the rim of the bottle. I saw her now, not the woman I loved, but the blueprint of the lie she was living. "Just thinking about a project," I said, my voice eerily normal. A structural flaw I didn't see coming. She tilted her head, a flicker of confusion in her eyes. "Oh, anything serious?" "You have no idea," I said, giving her a small, tight smile. "But don't worry, I have a plan to fix it." She thought she was playing chess, confident that I didn't even know the rules. She had no idea that I had just seen her entire game board, and I was about to flip the table over and set it on fire. So there I was, standing in my kitchen, smiling at my fiancé while my whole world had just been demolished. The silence between us was louder than any argument we'd ever had. Sarah kept looking at me, trying to read my face, but I'd put on my professional mask, the one I use when dealing with difficult clients. "You sure you are okay, Ethan?" she asked again, stepping closer. "You seem different." "Just tired," I said, taking another sip of beer. "Long day with the Henderson project, you know how they are." She relaxed visibly. "Oh, that awful couple, no wonder you are stressed." She started unpacking groceries, completely unaware that I knew her every move. "I was thinking we could order Thai food tonight." "I am exhausted too." "Sure," I said. "Whatever you want." And that is when the real performance began. For the next 2 weeks, I became the best actor of my life. I smiled at her mother's helpful suggestions about the wedding. I nodded when Sarah talked about our future. I even went with her to look at venues, all while knowing she was counting down the days until she could leave me. It was surreal. Every time she touched me, I had to fight not to flinch. Every "I love you" felt like a knife twist, but I kept my cool, because architects don't just demolish, we rebuild, and my new project was about to begin. The first thing I did was call my lawyer, Michael. He is this sharp, no-nonsense guy who looks like he was born in a courtroom. When I showed him the screenshots, he actually whistled. "This is premeditated financial fraud, Ethan," he said, scrolling through the messages. "She is not just greedy, she is calculated." "What are my options?" I asked. "Simple," Michael said. "She has no claim to your assets now, but if you marry her, everything changes. The moment you pay off those loans, that money is gone forever. So here is what you are going to do." He laid out the plan, and it was beautiful in its simplicity. I was going to give Sarah exactly what she wanted, but on my terms. The next evening, I set the stage perfectly. I cooked her favorite meal, filet mignon with roasted potatoes. I lit candles. I opened a bottle of expensive wine she'd been saving for a special occasion. "Wow, what is all this?" she asked, her eyes lighting up with genuine surprise. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," I said, pouring the wine. "About us, about our future." I could see her tense up slightly. "Oh?" I took her hand across the table, fighting every instinct to pull away. "About your student loans." Her eyes went wide. This was it, the moment she'd been waiting for. "I've been selfish," I continued, laying it on thick. "I've been so focused on the wedding, on work. I haven't been listening to you. That debt is weighing on you. And if it is weighing on you, it is weighing on you. It is weighing on us." Tears welled in her eyes, real ones this time. The performance was Oscar-worthy. "Ethan." "No, let me finish," I said, squeezing her hand. "I want to start our marriage with a clean slate, so I am going to pay off your loans, all of them." She actually started crying. Great heaving sobs of what looked like relief. She threw her arms around me, burying her face in my neck. "Oh my God, Ethan. I can't believe it. This is amazing." She immediately called her mother. "Mom, you won't believe it. Ethan's paying off my loans as a wedding gift." I could hear Rebecca's triumphant shrieks through the phone. The fish had taken the bait, hook, line, and sinker. "But there is one thing," I said when she hung up. I don't want to just wire the money. This is a monumental moment for us. I want to do it properly. She looked at me, confused but still glowing. Properly. I want to have a dinner, I said, with both our families. I'll have the bank prepare a cashier's check for the full amount, $150,000, and I'll present it to you there, in front of everyone we love, a public declaration of my commitment to our future. The look on her face was priceless. She was practically vibrating with excitement, a public ceremony of her victory. It was more than she could have dreamed of. That is so romantic, she gushed. When? Where? I'll book a private room at the Oak Room, I said, naming the most expensive restaurant in town, this Saturday. We'll make it a night to remember. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. While Sarah was busy bragging to her friends about how wonderful I was working behind the scenes. I met with the restaurant manager and arranged everything. I had my bank prepare the check, though not the one Sarah was expecting. I even hired movers to be on standby for Saturday night. The morning of the dinner, Sarah was buzzing with excitement. She spent hours getting ready, putting on the expensive blue dress I'd bought her for her birthday. You look beautiful, I told her, and for once I wasn't lying. She did look beautiful, like a perfectly designed trap about to spring. My parents are so excited, she said, adjusting her necklace. Daddy said he has never been prouder of me. I just smiled. I bet he is. The private room at the Oak Room was everything I'd promised. Elegant, intimate, expensive. Sarah's parents, Rebecca and David, were already there when we arrived. Rebecca looked like she'd just won the lottery, which I suppose she had. David, her father, seemed genuinely happy. The poor bastard still had no idea. My parents arrived shortly after. I'd briefed them earlier, and while my mother looked like she was attending a funeral, my father, also an architect, gave me a subtle nod of approval. He understood structural integrity better than anyone. We made it through appetizers and the main course. The conversation was strained but polite. Rebecca kept shooting me approving looks, while Sarah practically glowed with triumph. Then, as dessert was being cleared, I stood up, tapping my wine glass. Everyone, I began. Thank you for coming tonight. Sarah and I are so blessed to have such supportive families as we start our life together. I saw Rebecca nudge Sarah under the table. This was it. As you all know, I continued, Sarah has been carrying the burden of her student loans for years, and I've come to realize that is not her burden to carry alone. It is ours, as a team. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the envelope. Sarah's breath caught. Rebecca was leaning so far forward I thought she might fall out of her chair. So tonight, I said, my voice clear and steady, as my wedding gift to the woman I love, I am paying off her student loan debt in full. The reactions were perfect. My parents looked politely impressed. David beamed with pride. Rebecca looked ready to burst with victory. I opened the envelope slowly, dramatically, but instead of a check, I pulled out a single folded piece of paper. Sarah, I said, my eyes locking with hers. This is for you. I unfolded it and placed it in the center of the table. It was a blown-up, high-quality print of that first text message. Sarah, but don't worry, I'll get him to agree before the wedding. Once he pays them off, I am gone. The silence was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop in that room. Sarah's face went from radiant joy to absolute horror in half a second. The color drained from her face so completely she looked like a ghost. Rebecca made a choking sound. David's smile vanished as he read the words, his face crumbling with confusion and dawning understanding. My God, my mother whispered. Sarah, David said, his voice trembling. What is this? This, I said, my voice cold and steady, is what our engagement really was. A business transaction, a $150,000 exit strategy courtesy of her mother. I pulled out the rest of my evidence, copies of all the text conversations neatly bound. I handed one set to my parents, one to David. I believe these will answer all your questions, I said. The room erupted. Sarah started sobbing. Real tears this time. Rebecca was shouting about invasion of privacy. David just sat there, staring at the papers in his hands like they were written in a foreign language. The wedding is off, I said calmly, cutting through the chaos. We're done. I looked at my parents. Mom, Dad, I think we're finished here. As we walked out, I took one last look at the wreckage I'd left behind. Sarah was hysterical. Rebecca was screaming at David, and David just looked broken. But you know what? I felt nothing but that same icy calm. Phase 1 was complete. The demolition was over. Now it was time to see what happened when the dust settled. So there we were, walking out of the Oak Room, while my former future-in-laws were having a meltdown worthy of a reality television show. The silence in the car with my parents was heavier than any conversation we'd ever had. My mother finally spoke when we were 5 blocks away. Ethan, I don't even know what to say. That woman, that girl, she was shaking. My father, ever the pragmatist, kept his eyes on the road. The structural integrity was compromised from the beginning. You did the right thing. But the story wasn't over yet. Oh no. When we got back to my apartment building, the real show was just beginning. Parked right out front was a moving truck. 2 burly guys were loading up all of Sarah's things. The designer shoes she just had to have, the expensive art supplies she never used, the ridiculous collection of scented candles that made the place smell like a Bath and Body Works had exploded. Michael arranged it, I explained to my stunned parents. The locksmith should be finishing up right about now. As if on cue, a van pulled away from the curb. My apartment was now Fort Knox, and Sarah was on the wrong side of the moat. My phone started blowing up immediately. First it was text, Sarah. Where are my things? Sarah, you can't do this. Sarah, I'm calling the police. Then the voicemail started. Hysterical sobbing messages about how I was ruining her life. How it was all a misunderstanding. How her mother made her do it. I sent one text back. The police will be very interested to see the financial fraud evidence I've collected. I suggest you contact your mother instead of me. The calls stopped instantly, but the real masterpiece came the next morning. My doorbell rang at 7 a.m. There stood Sarah, looking like she'd been through a war. Mascara smeared, hair a mess, wearing the same clothes from the dinner. Ethan, please, she begged, tears streaming down her face. You have to let me explain. It was my mother, she pressured me. I never wanted to hurt you. I stood in the doorway, not letting her cross the threshold. Interesting. Because in your text from the 3rd of April, you told Chloe this was the smartest move you'd ever make. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. She hadn't realized I'd seen everything. That is when my parents pulled up. Perfect timing. Sarah saw her chance and literally threw herself at my mother's feet. Mrs. Thompson, please. You have to make him understand. I love him. I never meant any of it. My mother, God bless her, looked down at Sarah like she was something stuck to her shoe. Get up, Sarah. You are making a scene. But Sarah had one last card to play. She pulled out her phone. If you won't listen to me, maybe you'll listen to my parents. She put them on speakerphone. Big mistake. Rebecca's shrill voice filled the morning air. Tell that ungrateful bastard he can't do this to our family. We'll sue him for breach of promise. My father plucked the phone from Sarah's hand. Rebecca, this is Robert Thompson. I believe you've met my lawyer, Michael Grossman. He is very interested in discussing conspiracy to commit fraud. The texts where you coached your daughter to manipulate my son for $150,000 are particularly compelling. Dead silence from the other end, then sputtering. That is not. We never save it for the deposition, my father said calmly. But I will give you one piece of free advice. Get your daughter some psychological help, and maybe get some for yourself while you are at it. He hung up and handed the phone back to Sarah. Her face was a mask of pure horror. My father looked at her with something close to pity. Sarah, I am going to give you the same advice I give all my clients when I find fundamental flaws in their building plans. Know when to walk away from a doomed project. He turned to me. Ethan, I believe we're done here. As we turned to go inside, Sarah screamed the words that would become her epitaph in my life. You'll regret this. I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are. I just smiled and closed the door. The fallout was more beautiful than I could have imagined. Over the next week, David filed for divorce from Rebecca. Apparently, this wasn't the first time she'd engineered financial strategies that crossed ethical lines. Sarah lost her job at the gallery. Turns out constantly sobbing at work and trying to get sympathy by bad-mouthing your ex-fiancé doesn't go over well with employers. Chloe, the best friend, actually reached out to apologize. She'd been uncomfortable with the plan from the beginning, but was too afraid to speak up. My firm rallied around me. Senior partners I barely knew were stopping by my office to share their own dodged-a-bullet stories. But the best part, the final text I received from Sarah's number 2 weeks later, unknown number. My parents are getting divorced. I lost my job, and I am back living with my mother. My student loans are still $150,000. You destroyed my life. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I typed my response. No, Sarah. I just stopped you from destroying mine. And for what it is worth, your mother was right about one thing. You should have felt smart. Because now you get to be smart with your own debt, your own life, and your own consequences. I hit send, then blocked the number forever. So that is it, guys. The complete blueprints of how I went from planning a wedding to demolishing a fraud. Sometimes the most important structures we build aren't buildings. They're the boundaries that protect us from people who would tear our lives down. And me, I am doing better than ever. The apartment feels like mine again, work is thriving, and dating. Let's just say I've become very good at reading people's foundations before I invest. Because like my father always says, you can't build anything lasting on a cracked foundation. And Sarah, her foundation wasn't just cracked. It was designed to collapse from the very beginning.